Hello everyone, Random Observer here with another video. Today I want to talk about political polarization because we do seem to live in a very polarized time. And of course, the recent election of Giorgia Meloni, for example, in Italy, has raised the question. She has been dubbed in the media as far right, and there has been a complete panic about Italy and also Sweden and so on, about the re-emergence of what the media is calling the re-emergence of the far right. So it's a good time to talk about what I think polarizes people. I have to say, I think that, I myself am a centre-right conservative, so just an observation here, I would say it's 6 of one and a dozen of the other. The problem is that nobody seems to learn this lesson. For example, with the election of Trump, what happened was, as people admitted, I believe uh, the reason why Hillary Clinton did not get elected, the reason why those voters voted for Trump and not for Clinton, is very simply because she did not listen to them. She ignored them. She immediately thought, oh yes, uneducated, not very ignorant, whatever. I will just ignore them and concentrate on the core voters and the diverse communities, etc. But of course, Barack Obama, to give him his due, did actually treat voters as voters. In his own speech, he said about this is not about red states and blue states, it's about United States. Hence, of course, he was able to serve for 2 terms in office. Now, that provides a very good example. But other politicians have been very divisive. For example, Joe Biden's recent speech about Trump Republicans are the cause of all social ills. That is the equivalent of speaking in a crowded room of people and pointing and saying, that group over there is responsible for everything that is wrong. First of all, the group in question is going to feel antagonized, and everyone else around them is going to feel very uncomfortable. That's divisive politics, and it doesn't work. All it does is antagonize people against you, which it was just the wrong thing to say. Again, I'll come to that in a moment. The thing is, also, it comes back to ammunition. The reason why a political extreme is polarized is because its opponents give it the ammunition it needs. For example, okay, now people would say, oh, well, you're a conservative, what do you know? Okay, fine. To give an example from the other side of the aisle, remember what happened under the conservative, well, Republican governments, and I would say, okay, we had officially a Labour government, but it was fairly conservative here in the UK. Back during the War on Terror, I'm sure we all remember the terrible scandal of Abu Ghraib and the abuses there. And now people, I can see, I get the government's point of view. Our government, the US government, were probably thinking, right, okay, these are awful individuals. They have committed acts of terror. They have done horrific things. We're going to hit them hard and basically break them. But unfortunately, they broke their own rules to do that, as we know. They engaged in acts of torture. They held people without charge. They did in Guantanamo, certainly, etc., etc. And by doing that, of course, all that did was it gave America's enemies and our enemies all around the world the ammunition to say, there you go, this is what they are like. And we had no comeback to that. We had no defense. And that is what makes your enemy stronger and what makes your opponent, the opposing side, stronger. And the same thing is happening now because, for example, the far right can say, look at what's happening in Seattle. Look at all these far left Antifa folks or whoever, whatever, trashing all these properties and terrorizing people, etc., etc. See, this is what the left are like. And everyone thinks, whoa, oh yes, this is what's happening. And of course, it polarizes people. And I would say in this respect, the far left and the far right are the biggest catalysts for one another's recruitment because, of course, one action from one side then provokes the other side. But it also, again, the other thing is fairness and justice. These are not selective. For example, another example, America, Brett Kavanaugh. Okay, now he is not a popular figure. Okay, he is not liked. He has made decisions which people do not like. However, that is not an excuse to just ignore his rights. Unfortunately, he is still a political figure who therefore is still entitled to rights, even if you don't like him personally. Now, I forget which solicitor who said it. There is a famous solicitor whose name I apologize, I should quote, said that you have to extend rights even to people you despise, or otherwise they are just favors. I'll try and include the quote in the comment section on this one. Anyway, but exactly, that's the point. Justice is not convenient, it's not nice, it's not popular, but it has to be applied to everybody, and justice for all. Exactly, that's what it is. But that's not what happened in this case. When there was an assassination attempt on Brett Kavanaugh, that wasn't reported. That should have been front page news. It wasn't. When when a group of employees, I believe, were locked inside a federal building, and the building was set on fire, that was not front page news. It should have been, because of course the perpetrators in question, well, the editors or whoever it was obviously didn't want to paint them in a bad light, maybe, I don't know, whatever. Anyway, but in all these cases, all this did was basically confirm the criticisms of people on the other side of the aisle who could say, there we go, you see, this is what they do. Mainstream media is clearly biased. People, they're obviously not giving our side any of their rights. They're not respecting the freedoms, etc., etc. And there is no comeback to that. And this is exactly what gives, for example, Trump supporters, for example, the right in general, and yes, unfortunately, in some cases, the far right, the ammunition they need to say, there we go, this is what the other side are like, you see, etc., etc. So the thing is, yes, it comes back to justice for all. The only way, instead of this moral panic about, oh my goodness, there's all this extremism, blah, 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 you got to be prepared to listen to everyone, even if you don't like them. You can't just say, oh, well, that group over there is responsible for the whole of society's ill, because as we've seen, all that does is antagonize people. You got to do what Barack Obama did and say, right, we are not red states and blue states. We are United States. That's America, okay. But same principle here. You've got to say, right, okay, these are the principles that we believe in. This is what we live by. These are shared values. Anyone who believes in these values, let us work together, figure things out. That unites people across party lines. Example, we all believe that everybody should have justice. We all believe in looking for the truth. We all believe in the basic rules of a democracy. Well, I certainly do. Anyway, so I can respect that other people believe this too, even if I don't like them personally. And the same goes the other way around. So, but that's your starting point. You've got to start with the principles on which people agree. Don't just point the fingers at everybody. You've got to start with a basic. It used to be called common ground, a set of principles and values on which everyone agrees. And we go from there. That is how you combat extremism, because extremism is the absence of fairness and justice, I would say. So therefore, you bring fairness and justice back for all, you curb extremism. You're always going to have a couple of individuals who want to cause trouble. That's the way it is. But rather than give them the ammunition and the excuse to do that, let's just say, all right, you give them a fair trial, their rights, respect values, etc., etc. Now, two historical examples. Okay, when the Israelis captured Adolf Eichmann, the notorious Nazi war criminal, he literally he was in charge of transport for the Holocaust, and he sent thousands, if not millions, of innocent people to their deaths. I couldn't count the exact, I believe he sent most of the victims to their deaths, which was appalling. So, of course, naturally, people wanted justice, they wanted also revenge. The easiest thing to do, they could have simply executed him on the spot, or tortured him to death, or done all kinds of things, horrific things, which many people, I'm sure, would not have batted an eyelash at, they would not have objected to. Anyway, but they didn't do that. The Israeli government very purposefully gave him a fair trial. They gave him a fair defense. They presented the evidence. They did everything to let the world see, that this man has been tried fairly. And if anyone's seen the film on the Eichmann, which is a pretty chilling film, but based on the event, as per the film says, we gave him more justice than he ever gave us. And that's what broke him in the end. That's how they won. And the same thing, again, apartheid South Africa. When Nelson Mandela became president, he could have taken revenge. There were perpetrators of very serious, very bad abuses, crimes. They had helped in the regime. They had done bad things. But he didn't do that. I believe it was the Truth and Reconciliation Committee. They deliberately tried, they talked to people. They presented both sides. They looked at both sides. And Mandela himself pushed for a multicultural South Africa. He didn't just simply kill everybody and be done with it. No, he gave everybody justice. Everyone. And because of that, the world respected him. And he won. And that's how you win. You apply justice for all. So anyway, that is what we need to do in the current climate. We can't just say, oh, well, this is a group of extremists, right, we're going to ignore them, because that gives them the excuse to say, right, we're the victims. There we are, you see. Everything there, blah, blah, blah. So we've got to rise above it. We've got to say, no, we don't like these people. They don't like us, but here is a set of values we live by. Let's try and work with those, go from there. Anyway, that's all for today, guys. Feel free to comment below and subscribe if you like the video. Thank you.